Hello, welcome all. This is a toolbox talk on the dry and wet well project that we will be commencing soon. So thanks for coming. This session is a talk in our newest project. We've recently won a contract to refurbish a major sewage pump station. There are hundreds all over Adelaide, and they collect wastewater through a gravity system. Water is then pumped through the dry and wet well system. These pumps pump the water to a treatment plant, and we'll be working on a South Australian submersible wastewater pumping station. So our proposed works. Our main task for this process is to replace the pumps in the dry wells and modify the inlet of the wet wells to allow the water to come through. Both of these tasks are deep underground and are extremely difficult to access. There are many safety concerns when working in confined spaces such as these. As we are also working with a vast area of low density water, there is an extreme risk of drowning potentially. Today's session will be covering the expected hazards in relation to the proposed works, as well as the mitigating strategies that we will put in place to create a safe work environment. We will also go over the necessary licensing and training needed in order to complete the proposed tasks. If anyone does not have necessary or current licensing, please let me know, as this will be checked on later on. Replacement of the pumps in the dry well. To replace the pumps in the dry well, we'll be working in a confined space along with big heavy pumps that have the potential to cause serious muscle and skeletal harm. To replace these pumps and avoid bodily harm, we will need heavy machinery to suspend the pumps in the air and lift them out of the dry well. In this process alone, there are several hazards that arise. As these pumps are extremely heavy, they have the potential to cause harm if the slings or the plant are not secured and used properly. To prevent the pump falling, we need to ensure every part of the operation is secured properly and checked over before movement of the pump begins. Another concern is the potential for a pump to swing and potentially hit someone in the confined space. To mitigate this risk, we can apply a tether rope to the pump, allowing somewhat control over the pump as it's suspended, as well as ensuring no one is in the confined space and amongst the big heavy pump. Some other risks involved with replacing the pump include electrical hazards. You can come into contact with live wires and various components. Mechanical hazards, as there are big moving parts within the dry well, e.g. the pump. Water and flooding hazards. As it's deep underground, water can come through, and we're also working with sewerage, so water is a concern. To mitigate these specific hazards, it's crucial that we isolate and shut off the different components that control them. So we need to ensure the pump is disconnected from the main power source, the machines are shut down and turned off and isolated, and we need to make sure the dry well is isolated from water sources, if that's from above or the various water sources with that it pumps the water in through. PPE is also a mandatory requirement, so we need to wear gloves, work boots, hard hats. All of these help protect and minimise the harm that could potentially come to a worker. Also, as we're working in a confined space, we have to be wary, as this can pose a risk for poor ventilation as well as limited access. Before conducting works in the dry well, it is crucial to ensure that we undergo risk assessment processes to identify any other potential hazards that I may miss in this talk. We also need training to enter confined spaces. This is a necessity, and no worker should be able to enter or complete proposed works in the well without this training and authority. We also need to test and monitor the air in the confined space. Air purging may be required. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Wet well modification of the inlet works to the pumps. This task comes with many similar hazards to replacing the pumps in the dry well. Although we are not required to move big, heavy pumps, we're still working in deep, confined spaces where various mechanical and electrical systems are present. Therefore, it's crucial that we isolate the various power supplies and shut off the mechanical instruments. We're going to adapt the danger tag system in both this project and the dry well system. The danger tag system involves individual padlocks that workers place on the control panel of each system. You look after your own key, and this allows surety that no one can open the control panel and start any part of the isolated systems whilst the workers are in the well. As a wet well traditionally holds a large mass of water within it, flooding and drowning are of a greater likelihood, as wet wells go very deep underground. It is crucial that water levels are monitored and controlled. We'll do this by using barriers to isolate and section off the well, restricting water access to the well. It can then further be monitored by using a system of alarms and monitors to make sure we understand what's going on with the water levels and make sure they don't get too high. Workers will also be required to wear necessary PPE such as life jackets as just an extra safety measure in the event that they are fully submerged in water. In the event of a breach, safety plans will be put in place and practiced before any work commences. Workers underground will also have safety tethers attached, where in the event of a breach, we'll have a spotter up top. They will need to be ready to hoist the workers out in the event of an emergency. A safe work environment is your right as the employee or worker. No worker should be forced to perform any task in the instance where they feel unsafe and not at all at the full capacity to complete their work. Therefore, creating a safe work environment is a crucial element of our project. We will achieve it in this project through isolation and shutdown of mechanical, electrical, and water systems, use of the danger tags on control panels, monitoring of the water levels. We'll also complete thorough risk assessment before the start of any proposed works, communication between workers and supervisors. We will have a worker representative for you guys, and we'll have regular consultations between supervisors and workers in the form of updates of site conditions and proposed works, as well as any suggestions that you as workers may have. We will also create and practice a safety plan in the event of an emergency, further helping a safe work environment. During the planning and execution of the proposed works, there are various regulations that we are required to stick to, and we must adhere to them so that we complete the work correctly, legally, and safely. We will be consulting further with various regulatory bodies throughout the works to ensure we are keeping up to date with these. We need the correct and relevant approval. Before commencing any work, we have to obtain approval from local and state government. This helps to inform the council what the proposed works are in the area, allowing them to publish any changes and effects the public may experience during our proposed works. We will also be working with the Department of Environment and Water, who we must liaise with to ensure all procedures and approvals are done before commencement. The Australian standards. There are a set of Australian standards involved when completing various works to ensure the completed projects meet the Australian standard, which is our standard. The AS1547, made in 2012, refers to the requirements for wastewater management, as we are dealing with an aspect of wastewater when changing the pumps in the dry well and changing the intake in the wet well. We must ensure the completed works are up to code and that they meet the performance requirements set out in these standards. The AS 3000, made in 2018, the electrical and wiring rules for Australia, and they set out the various electrical requirements that we must adhere to in the completion of our project, as when we hook up the pumps, for example, they have electrical components. The AS 3500, the plumbing and drainage system standards, outlining the importance of correct installation and system integrity. As we are dealing with wastewater, it is important that we meet these standards. In some aspects of our project, we need to go above just the minimum of what's in these standards, as these modifications that we make now need to last and continue on for a long time. Additionally, we need to adhere to the National Construction Code, NCC, which outlines the Plumbing Code of Australia. So we'll have to go into further detail with that. Safe Work SA has set out the work, health and safety regulations that we must comply with on all work sites. They also have specific regulations when it comes to confined spaces. We must ensure that confined space is well ventilated before conducting work. This is done by using air monitoring systems to test the air levels. If the air levels are found not adequate, then we must use air purging to get the confined space suitable for workers to enter. Mentioned before, as part of our safety protocol, we must have a competent person standing up at the top of the confined space who is ready to act in the case of emergency. This is the person looking out and in charge of the tethers that the workers have. They must be prepared to pull the workers out at any point, just in case. Training and licensing. We must adhere to the South Australian work health and safety regulations for training, as it's a necessity when doing work in general, especially working in dry and wet wells, these confined spaces, and extra dangerous. Workers being trained correctly on various procedures and safety measures allows the work to be conducted safely and efficiently. Some of the necessary training and licensing for the proposed works are white cards. I'm assuming all of you will have them. It's a mandatory training for all works and construction sites in Australia. It allows the construction worker to enter a site and complete work and proves they have a basic site safety knowledge. Confined spaces training. This identifies the risks and hazards workers may face when entering confined spaces and how to identify and manage these risks in the case when something goes wrong, how to handle the situation and proceed as safely as possible. This is a necessity for this project. Working at heights training. Although we are working below ground, in instances where we are working at ground level, there can still be anywhere from 3 to 10 metre drop to solid ground. Therefore, working at heights training is necessary. It provides a knowledge on how to keep a worker safe at high levels, as well as how to keep the colleagues and workers below them safer. Working with gas detectors and air monitors. As we're working in confined spaces, it's crucial that workers are currently trained and know how to operate gas detectors. In confined spaces, quite often potential for harmful gases, and there have been countless incidents in history in which workers have lost consciousness due to lack of oxygen or exposure to harmful gases. It is also vital that workers are trained to use breathing apparatus, as there is a chance that throughout the works it's found that requirements to use such devices is a necessity. So just for a bit of a summary, when replacing the dry well pumps, we are working with heavy pumps which have the potential to cause harm to workers. To combat this, we're using heavy machinery to lift them out, but there are hazards that arise from that. The potential for failure of machinery or the slings, and the potential for pumps or machinery to hit workers within the confined space or even above ground, so we have to be extra cautious when it comes to that, using things such as the tether rope and making sure no one is in the confined space when moving the pump. When working on the modification of the wet well intakes, the hazards involved include flooding and drowning, because wet wells are designed to fill up, and this poses a major hazard for workers within the well. Safety tethers will also be attached to these workers, so that in the event of an emergency, workers can be hoisted up and out of the well. Some of the hazards that apply to both are the electrical, mechanical, and water flooding aspects. So to combat these, it's crucial to ensure all systems and machines are switched off and systems are isolated prior to commencement of work. We'll be using the danger tag system throughout our process to ensure that no systems can be running while workers are in and amongst the wells. Another focus was a safe work environment for the workers. How can we achieve this? We can achieve this through mitigating the risks, using effective communication, taking on board the suggestions from the workers. We will also be creating a safety plan, and we will be practicing the safety plan so that all workers know what to do in the event of an emergency. We dove into the various regulations and training that's required for this project. These are not to be taken lightly. They are extremely important. And if anyone hasn't completed the training, come to me, because that is quite important. You will have access to this meeting if you require it at any point in the future. It's all been recorded. I will also be available to answer any questions or queries regarding the project. If anyone has anything, you can come up to me and speak to me after this. Also, if you want my number, if you have any questions later on down the track, I will be giving that out. No worries. Well, thank you for listening to the Toolbox Talk. It's extremely important, and we care about your safety on the worksite. Thank you.